Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Guile here, and welcome back to the Forged Alliance Forever promotional series. Pro-level ladder action on the cards this afternoon. Very exciting. First of all, however, my obligatory weekly King and Prince of Map tourney announcement. And the next installment to that tourney kicks off this weekend at the usual time. That's Saturday 7 PM GMT plus 1. Saturday 7 PM GMT plus 1. And the map of choice is going to be Twin Rivers this week. So as usual, guys, if you think you've got what it takes to snag one of those shiny avatars, then by all means sign up in the tourney tab on FAF, or alternatively through the application form on the forums that can be found in the MOTD today on FAF, if you want a link to it. So there you go. Go for it, guys. Why not? What have you got to lose except your dignity? Alright, enough of that. Let's get on with today's game. It's going to be a ladder match, as we've said, and that's going to go down on Rigor 6 Highlands. So let's go on over to the game zone and see how these guys are going to get on. Now, it's not been a million years since we cast this map, although I think it's the only other time we have featured this map here on Guilecast, so we don't need to go into it too much, but perhaps we will mention a little bit about it as things progress in this one. Let's take a look at our players. First of all, though, however, we'll start up here at the top in the red corner with my good friend and fellow caster, TA4Life. He is going Cybran, opening first land, and I like what he's doing here. Adjacency bonuses all day, not just from the two adjoining mexes there, but also snagging one on the Hydro as well. So that's an interesting opening build there from him. And his opponent down here at the bottom in the blue corner, not doing things in quite the same fashion. It's Mad-Mozart also going Cybran, so it's a mirror matchup and also opening first land. Now look at this, Mad-Mozart going for the standard factory 2P gen build, and then we get on with mass. TA4Life conversely doing things his way, as we saw him actually do on Theta Passage not so long ago, not getting those first 2P gens. That hydrocarbon is near enough that he can start work on that straight away, and if we take a look at him, I'm betting he is going to finish that and get power in the nick of time just before that runs out. And as a result, he's been able to pick up these 4 mexes early, which gives him a little bit of an advantage over Mad-Mozart. Not a huge amount, but there goes the Hydro with about 200 power left or something in the bank. That's more than enough, and then he can start working all that. And now Mad-Mozart admittedly is caught up on the mass side of things, but it just gives you a little bit of extra mass. And let's face it, when you're at the top of this game, fine margins are actually quite helpful ultimately if you can get enough of them together. So yeah, nice work there from TA, and I like that opening build. I think more people should open like that. The 2P gen isn't always necessary if you can get access to the Hydro. Definitely ultimately a slightly more efficient build. But anyway, we've got a lab out for TA, and we've also got a Mantis out there for Mozart. Mantis with lots of moles, so clearly Mozart's worried about some kind of early attack coming his way. He's going to get as much intel as possible, and Mozart should have ultimately picked that up on the way down, but hasn't managed to see it, or at least spot it. He didn't redirect that Mantis, but this mole down here will scout it, and as a result, Mozart is going to use his ACU to expand out west and pick up these mexes on this side of things. So that lab sitting there around the edge of the mountainside, hoping to pick off an engineer, I suggest is probably not going to be successful. But anyway, first few planes out for both parties. We've got a few scout planes up here for Mozart, one down here for TA. Inties on both sides now, and TA also getting out a few moles as well, some early intel. It's quite a broad map, and there are so many little channels that your opponent can attack down, and there are these multiple clumps of mexes, these places where you're going to want to try and stick little fire bases together, little choke points where you want to stop your enemy coming through. That is a very natural one in here. Give you an idea of how things look on that side of things. It's quite a large hillock, which you're not going to be able to drive straight over. So in here and in here are going to be natural channels for units. Of course, the main plateau, the main ridge in the center, is going to be quite a dangerous place to be, you would imagine, for much of the game. But now we've got a few Mantis coming in around the edge, looking for engineers to kill, no doubt. But TA4Life's ACU in attendance on that side of the map. And they have actually managed to find at least one NG busy reclaiming the forest there. Very sad indeed. He won't be making it home to Grandma's 90th birthday party, even though he promised he would be there. Absolutely tragic. But a little bit of an air engagement kicking off over TA side of things. Seems to be going slightly better there for Mad-Mozart. And a little bit of exchange of fire on the ground in the center between the two groups of Mantis as well. Let's have a quick look at how people are doing with general quantities of units. So 14 Mantis on the map at the moment for Mozart. TA on 23, so again much more efficient with his Mantis production. He's just everywhere at the moment, so he's got a mole and a Mantis down here at the bottom right hand corner, skirting past that T1 mechs, and can't hang about either because he's got a couple of Mantis on his tail. We've also got one in around the back that's just loitering around that large boulder that he imagines will have an NG coming that way to reclaim it soon enough. We've also got a few standing guard in the channel here. I think he could probably make a push down this right hand side, but that might potentially leave him vulnerable to a counter push from this little group of 3 Mantis here, although he does have reinforcements coming in. And it's quite interesting. There's a large transport wreck with a whole bunch of tanks next to it waiting to be picked up, and Mad-Mozart doing just a little bit better on the eco. 25 mass per tick against 21. We'll have a look at reclaim figures in the early game though. 2,000 nearly banked there for Mozart, and just a little bit less, fractionally less for TA. So eco wise, Mad-Mozart overtaking on this one ever so slightly. TA with the more initial efficient build, but the looks of things, expansion-wise, Mozart being a little bit more efficient. But another drop, or a drop, coming in now from Mozart to this rear section. That looks to me like the only way you can actually reach these bits. There are no other passes into this little mountain area, and you've got to be careful because there is a PD and a anti-air gun T1 UEF, so you really need that Medusa, which he's got in the mix, couple of them, to kill off that static defense, and then grab the mexes. And it's worth doing because there's 3 of them back there, but there's still an engineer on board, and that is being airdropped to the highland up here. And you're not kidding when you say highland. That is extraordinarily high compared to everything else on the map. I think maybe the mountains in the background are a little bit higher, but certainly by the looks of things the highest plateau in the game, or the map. 38 to 28, so Mozart still looking pretty good in this one. And Mozart with a little bit of an advantage in ladder ranking, but as we're well aware, TA a very proficient vet in and of himself. Another large exchange of fire on the central ridge between these clumps of Mantis, and Mozart with an advantage in numbers. TA4Life trickling more units in. Needs to assemble a formation and present a broad face on to Mozart, who is looking quite dangerous in the middle. Wheeling right now, and a couple of mechs is potentially in jeopardy, as well as this engineer that's trying to snag the hydro. Doubtful he's going to be allowed to complete that though, but TA looking aggressive just on the other side of that ridge, moving forward with his ACU. Is going to pick up a radar installation. What does that do to the intel on this side of the map for Mozart? Well, it looks like it well and truly wipes it out. Immediately that ACU disappears, and down go those mexes. Mozart needs to reassemble his forces into a better position. The corner of that formation just getting shredded there by TA, who I think might have finally amassed enough units to counteract Mozart's force here. But either way, those 2 mexes out of commission. Mozart will be happy with that. While on the other side of that ridge, Mozart is set up nicely has some intel, has a PD, has the mechs and the hydro. And that adds to his advantage, or at least that advantage he had for a second, and then suddenly it jumps to 41 all, and then suddenly TA surpasses. So I'm guessing that's going to be developmental upgrades, mechs is being upgraded. Clump of troops there from TA not managing to break through around the back there. Another little pressure on the ridge as well. Small group of build capacity is getting beaten on by one lone Mantis. And in the end they all go down, but those two Mantis not going to survive either. TA4Life with his ACU in the pond right next to that main ridge. Bringing it out now. Perhaps worried about this pressure that's coming down the center from Mad-Mozart. Another air engagement over the top of all of this. Air seems to be reasonably even in this one, or has been historically. Mozart just getting the better of it though in this exchange. 16 interceptors on the field there for Mozart against now 7 for TA. But once again the mass tallies more or less equalizing there, and power almost identical as well, just 5 difference in it between these two guys. Two rogue Mantis make it into the base in the far east though for Mozart. Build capacity immediately starts work on some PD, but I don't think they're going to need it to defeat these two, as one Mantis turns up in the nick of time to save the day. Pin a medal on that chap who survives with 14 HP as he scurries off. I always feel bad. He deserves to go home to base and be repaired, but it's not going to happen. He's going to get his life thrown away unnecessarily. There it goes. There'll be probably no one left in this area to report his heroics either. Although, yeah, no, there they are. I was wondering if there were any Medusas being brought up, which they'll need to deal with that auto gun. TA trying to save these 4 T1 mexes as best he can. Down goes the land factory, and Mozart is going to withdraw. So the 4 T1 mexes, 8 mass per tick, rescued. Yeah, we'll be very happy with that. Won't mind losing the T1 factory too much. But still more pressure in the middle from Mozart. He has got some PD in operation a little bit further back. The first T2 units now being seen on the field. Rhinos advancing. And surely we've got T2 down here as well. Yes, we have. And in fact, quite a few, not just the HQ, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 standard T2 factories as well. So a lot of potential build capacity there for Mozart. And that measures up against the HQ for TA and just the 2 neighboring ones. You see he's going for adjacency bonuses on all of that core mechs there. Worrying too much about mass storage. There's quite a lot of mass dotted, a lot of mass points dotted around on this one. So feel okay with not doing it. We're at this T2 mech stage, but Mad-Mozart hasn't thrown down any mass storage around his yet either. TA senses he might potentially have the tech advantage, at least in this area of the field, so he's going to use it to grab a little bit more map control. If he could get in over this side and wipe out these mexes, that would be a little bit of a coup for him. Really, all of the pressure so far in this one has come from Mozart. That's been in this area and in this area. We have got T2 units on the front line now for Mozart over here in the east. They're dealing with pretty heavy numbers of Mantis, so the last 2 units left in that little platoon are going to back up. But look out, large numbers of Rhinos moving into the center now for Mozart, and they're going to catch TA off formation there. That is definitely going to go well for Mozart. TA doesn't want to land those inties there either. Producers in the mix further back doing what they can there for TA, but alas, not going to be tipping the balance. 15 minutes gone in this one, 67 to 78 or 60 to 78 there between these two guys. TA with a modest mass advantage for the moment. Let's take a quick look at reclaim. 12,400 for TA, and Mad-Mozart 7,300. So of course that harassment from Mozart does have a cost to it as well. TA benefiting from that reclaim. A lot of point defense in this area, but TA, it's a good thing too, because facing slightly stronger odds on the ground in this portion of the map. That T1 factory is going to go down, but we've got a bit of a push going on over here in the west. Mad-Mozart over here in the east is sitting there with a whole bunch of Rhinos, but not progressing forward. There is one auto gun in the area and a lot of build capacity, potentially more PD going to be erected very soon. Mad-Mozart about to engage some of these Rhinos in the west. See what things look like to him. Well, he's got intel up and running. That radar over here on the plateau giving him perfect coverage, so he'll be able to see what's going on without any difficulties there. Scout plane out the back there for TA, giving him a little bit of an updated view of what's going on. And then another lull, but another attack follows on not long after. Mozart not committing too heavily, just shuffling forward, gaining what land he can. TA creeping ahead in eco ever so slowly. Still operating off T1 Air. That's quite a lot of T1 Air factories. And there is actually a T2 Air factory, apologies, right at the back there, producing Corsairs fighter bombers as we speak. Potentially another large push, but I like it. Blank templates down for TA. Doesn't have the mass to spare to go around building that much point defense. Of course, the problem is Cat might be out of the bag now. Whole wave of inties for Mad-Mozart flying over that section as soon as he realizes that that's not genuine point defense. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't move forward to test the water. Large air forces now for both players. Let's take a look at who's doing a little bit better. I hazard the guess to say TA sitting on 63 T1s. He's also got a few T2s in there as well. And that compares to the 36 for Mozart, 11 on top, which are out of fuel. But in come the Corsairs, going straight after the forward T2 power plant, dropping Mad-Mozart down to 860 generated power there, and you can see that is bottlenecking him on power ever so slightly. Excuse the phone going off in the background there. But interceptors brought in for Mad-Mozart, successful at culling those Corsairs before they cause any more damage, but he will be gutted to have lost that T2 P-Gen, and he's really suffering for it. Needs to get that reinstalled as quickly as possible. I think that is what's keeping him above water, that one to the left there. TA could take that out as well. He would really be in trouble, but see any more Corsairs threatening to do anything like that. But we do see some T3 on the field. Bricks emerging now for TA4Life in the center. Meanwhile, Mad-Mozart realized there's not an awful lot of defense on the ground over here. These were blank templates. All he's got to worry about is that one rear T1 PD, which is really causing too many problems. A lot of build capacity in the area, throwing together auto guns as quickly as they can. The problem is, of course, is there's a large gap, and that band of Mad-Mozart's tanks can just roll on past without really concerning itself too much and potentially threaten all this at the back here. More build capacity working on point defense to the rear. TA4Life bringing his ACU into the area to help defend. Another push over in the west, so this is really a very much two-pronged attack from Mozart now. Only T1 forces, well, a couple of T2 units in there, 3 or 4 Rhinos, the rest Medusas. It's one of the great things about Cyberant, those Medusas with that EMP blast on their shells makes them continually of use throughout the game. Shield blocking most of the fire initially, but that collapses eventually, and those engineers wiped out. TA4Life not doing a great deal of overcharging, and of course as soon as I say it, in comes one, taking out about 3 or 4 units. I've got a brick coming in from the west as well, and that's going to signal a retreat order from Mad-Mozart, but all 3 of those mexes taken out, and that has given Mad-Mozart the lead, 89 to 65 in terms of mass. Units over in the west going to be challenged now by a brick. And we do have T3 tech from Mozart, but the first units still yet to emerge. I'm wondering if he hasn't been suffering power issues ever since that T2 P-Gen was sniped, and that's what's held him up here. Still, lovely little two-pronged counter push has kept TA busy and hasn't allowed him to capitalize on that air attack. Big bold positioning for an auto gun there. Not going to get a great deal of work done. There are too many Medusas, too many TT units in the area now. Rhinos absorbing the fire. While Medusas lob shells in at range. And look at this though. Lovely little drop that we missed earlier on. You actually get across there, you can, so they could have snuck around the edge. Well, actually, no, they couldn't, because that's a pond there. And they're not amphibious, so that was a lovely little drop at some point from TA, knocking down that Hydro. And those units just set to patrol. But another wave of Corsairs on this side of things. Down goes a radar that was upgrading, so intel cut down on that side of the map once again for Mozart. This time it's Mozart whose formation is correctly aligned. That brick just going to chew up those corner units. But he's still ahead, 105 to 76. TA needs to scramble to pick up these mexes. He needs to get some units in here to kill off these rhinos sitting by that forward hydro. Make sure he can properly secure those two mexes. But TAC missiles from a very forward, precarious position there from TA, going after mexes, no doubt, on this side of things. The split missile making it through in small quantities, but Zapper just enough to save those two T2 mexes, but nonetheless another Zapper started. The annoying Cybran split missile allowing some damage to sneak through even after TMD activates. Down goes the shield. Down goes a forward Zapper, so we could potentially see more TAC missiles come in towards the base on this vector. Surely the shield gen next. There it goes, and there goes another T2P gen. If he can snag this one as well, again that will be setting Mozart back. He just can't seem to secure the airspace above his base. Down it goes. Mozart dropped down to 1.2k. You can see his mass store steadily being depleted. In comes another round. If he loses this one, he's going to be in major trouble. But enough inties in the area to cause problems. One TAC missile in kills off the radar. Can he get to the T2P gen with another one before Mozart can throw in any TMD? A push down the center though from Mozart puts him very close to that TAC missile launcher. There are two in there. TA, fire a missile, please. Oh God, doesn't quite manage it. So that P-Gen and potentially that Mex as well survives for no good reason, unless it was just on the corner range. I don't think it was, but potentially a missed opportunity there, which would have had Mozart bang in trouble. He's in trouble as it is, but you can imagine losing another T2P gen. He would have been so heavily hampered on power. Perhaps someone in the comment section below would like to check the replay ID afterwards and go rewatch it and see if that TAC missile range was in, well, that TAC missile was in range of that power plant. I think it must have been. Surely it must have been. Mozart doing a great job of staying relevant in the center. However, a push over in the west from TA has completely neutralized that western base. That is out of commission and almost leveled. In fact, TA surpassing as I speak, jumping to 112 versus 99. So great work from TA. Dragonfly, though, collecting a brick. Where is Mad-Mozart taking it? Two very cheeky units in around the back there. That's where he's bringing it. Is a very much a small base repositioning there to deal with this pesky rhino. No doubt this banger up at the back. But yet more power issues, which Mozart could well do without. And now that group of bricks that we saw make a move on that base in the west has moved forward, but they are getting crucified by this crater dwelling. Land just getting in the way of it, and TA not paying attention to this section of the map at this moment in time. And he really should have wiped it out by now. That's 2 T2 mexes and a T1. All he has to do is order those bricks in, and Mozart actually realizing the issue is moving his ACU forward, no doubt to come in and try and overcharge some of these clumped bricks. So this is a missed opportunity very much. Of course, it's so easy to say when you can see everything. Forward vanguard there for TA, getting caught out on the right flank, or their left it should be, but units moving in from the east either way from Mad-Mozart. So he does manage to pick off the 2 T2 mexes, but ultimately those bricks overcharged to death. Skyhook turns up just to watch it, see his friendlies die. And once again, all is silent on the battlefield. But look at that, 124 mass per tick for TA versus 83. Let's take a look at Reclaim. 42,000 for TA, 24,000 for Mozart. So TA now firmly in control eco-wise. Look at map control side of things as well. Mozart's sitting on about 35% at the moment, there or thereabouts. But we have a Monkey Lord under construction. Has he rectified his power issues? Well, just about. He hasn't got a lot to spare, but he's regulating his build orders nicely, not overwhelming it with that math store that he's got. And importantly, he's in control of the flow of things on the central ridge here. Needs to be a little bit careful he doesn't get caught by these trebuchets. 3 of them now in this forward band, that if they get set up they can cause some problems at range. TA working very much with conventional units, not going down the experimental route. Surprised he's actually using all of his mass. He doesn't seem to be building a huge quantity of stuff. But now a 50 mass advantage for TA, but look how quickly that spider has gone up. They really are incredibly cheap. One of my most hated experimentals in the game for that very reason. 19,000 mass or whatever they are. Very easy to build and get up quickly. Lovely little drop to the top plateau with Deceiver and Brick. One of them didn't make it. I can only assume that's another drop that didn't manage to make landfall, was shot down by either anti-air or some inties, or there's not a lot of inties in the area. But nonetheless, that Brick on the ground now. Lots of T1 PD being thrown together, though. I doubt he's going to make it through to the rear mexes, which is a good thing too, because we've got 2 T3s and a T2, which is on its way to being upgraded to T3 for TA. That spider must be done by now. Indeed it is, as it leaves the base. Have a look at where it's headed. Well, it's going straight for the central ridge. And TA really needs to get those bricks set up in a line to face it. No doubt it's going to be a little bit of a surprise, unless those scout planes which have been hovering over this side of the map have managed to get a read on it in the last few minutes or so. That brick was defeated ultimately, and all of those mexes still operational, but this is synced up very nicely for Mad-Mozart, who's now able to advance in tandem with both his bricks and his spider. TA4Life cancels the upgrade he was doing on his commander to T3, having now seen that experimental. Now, what's he switching up to is the question. He really hasn't got a great deal on the ground, and for the mass advantage he's got, I'm almost astounded. I just don't know where it's gone. It's just sort of gone into a huge mix of anti-air, trebuchets, and bricks, but not in any significant enough number to deal with this Monkey Lord. Build capacity back here, throwing together T1 PD as best they can. And bricks decided they're going to make a stand here. A whaler is brought in as well. Problem is there's a banger in the mix that ultimately does succumb to some trebuchet fire. In comes a solitary Corsair, and that really needs to be what TA is prioritizing now, is air. I really think that's the only way he's going to deal with this. Another wave of Corsairs come in, half those shots miss. That Monkey Lord down to 39,000 hit points out of 63, 70 kills and rising. Not going to be too long before he's due another round of vet. He's on about 50%, just under now, HP. More lines of PD queued up further back, but that spider bot advancing so quickly, he's not giving TA enough time to get anything together, and gets another rank of veterancy in the process. And down goes the T3 HQ, so no more bricks now being produced for TA. And look out, insult to injury, another Deceiver brick drop up at the back there. And astonishingly, this one Monkey Lord has strolled through TA. He'd done all of the hard work in this one. He'd got himself a fantastic advantage, but just didn't have enough to counter the experimental. Down go a ton of engineers. Another T2 PGen and another. That T3 Air HQ is soon to follow. It's going to be close in coming up around the Corsairs, and they managed to kill it off and save one T2 PGen, but the T3 Air Factory doesn't survive. 3 bricks still alive, though, for Mozart, and TA still with a healthy mass lead, 159 to 115, astonishingly. But now, just with no build capacity or build capability whatsoever, he's lost his land HQ, he's lost his air HQ, he's rebuilt his land HQ over here. But he's got more bricks coming in from the southeast. HQ tied up in a battle with a brick over here. Does he even have overcharge anymore? Yes, he does, thankfully. But ASF's circling overhead for Mozart, so he's now got the air advantage. And with bricks bearing down on this main base, you can have all the mass advantage in the world, but it's not going to do him any good. You can't hold on to any engineers or factories. TA loitering around that pond is now getting torpedo bombers by huge quantities of cormorants that Mozart has been using to try and flush that commander out. He's going to head towards the bank and work on some more shield coverage. He's almost dealt with all of the bricks down here. And annoyingly, one is still alive. T1PD just about manages to finish it off, but another wave coming in from the southwest of this position now. He's still way in the lead, though, on eco. It's astonishing. I mean, not obviously on power. And that is a significant problem for him. But I just don't see... He can't do anything with the mass. He's just kind of trapped in this base now. He's trying to throw together some T2PD. Cerberus turrets going up at the corner there. But out go the GG. TA capitulates. He realizes this is just going to be too much to deal with. And all of that eco up here now would have fallen into Mozart's hands, who is dropping engineers up to TA's old main base to reclaim it. Nothing he can do about it. TA said he was waiting for the Monkey Lord, but he saw it too late. So perhaps he saw it under construction with an early scout plane, but was surprised to see it on the ridge when it finally did materialize. TA control cases comm and yields a victory to Mozart just shy of 40 minutes. A really interesting one. I actually thought he'd done enough there to clinch that one, taking nothing away from Mad-Mozart, who played a strong game. But someone watch that back and tell me if that was in range, because I honestly believe if TA had launched those other two missiles and managed to kill off that P-Gen and maybe kill off a T2 Mex, that would have just sealed it. Surely Mozart would have been so far behind. Getting his eco back on his feet would have been such a struggle. And even with him going Spider, the extra time would have given TA so much more time to get bricks out. And if that Spider had gone down, well, that would have been it, basically. But great game. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. As always, more to come from me in the future. But in the meantime, stay well and stay safe. This is Guile, signing out.